The old bicycle leaned against the back wall of the wooden shed. The dark green of its frame almost vanished beneath a thick layer of gray dust. Its tires were flat, pressed against the cement floor, marking the long passage of time it had been forgotten there. The metal, once gleaming, now showed rough orange-tinged spots. It was a machine built for motion, for the wind and the open road, but it had become nothing more than a silent shadow in the darkest corner of the room. Maybe this is just another one of those quiet stories made to help you relax. And sometimes that's all we really need. Vicente paused before it. He held a clean cloth in his hands. The air in the shed smelled of old sawdust and dry earth. He looked at the curved line of the metal frame, at the parched leather seat, and at the stiff chain that hadn't turned in ages. There was a weight to that abandonment. The bicycle seemed tired, rooted to the ground, unable to fulfill its purpose. Vicente decided that this forced rest had come to an end. He would make that metal structure glide through the world once more. The promise of movement began with a simple gesture. Vicente walked to the bicycle and gripped the handlebars. The touch revealed dry, brittle rubber beneath his fingers. He pulled the frame forward. The wheels didn't turn. The flat rubber dragged across the cement with a dull, heavy sound. He had to lift the front slightly, then the back, moving the bicycle step by step to the center of the shed, where the afternoon light streamed in through a large square window. Under the clear light, the state of neglect became even more apparent. Spiderwebs connected the pedals to the back wheel. The light revealed every scratch, every point of wear. Vicente didn't see a problem. He saw a path back. He released the handlebars and let the bicycle rest on its metal kickstand. The kickstand creaked, but held the weight. The bicycle was in the center of the space, ready to receive attention. Vicente's shed was a place of order and calm. Tools rested in their places on the walls, organized by size and utility. There was a thick wooden workbench, marked by years of use. The silence of the place was comforting, broken only by the distant song of a bird outside and the sound of wind passing through the roof's crevices. It was an environment that demanded no hurry. Time inside flowed at the rhythm of working hands. Vicente walked to the workbench. He picked up a stiff bristled brush and a small bucket. He walked to the faucet outside the shed and filled the bucket with water. The sound of water falling into the empty plastic changed tone as the bucket filled, becoming deeper and fuller. He closed the faucet. The garden around the shed was green and peaceful. He returned inside, carrying the weight of water, feeling the coolness rising from the bucket. He placed the bucket on the floor, near the bicycle. He looked at the still machine once more. The work would be long. There was no way to rush the removal of time accumulated on the metal. Each part would need to be separated, cleaned, understood, and returned to its place. The afternoon was just beginning. The sunlight drew a yellow square on the cement floor, and this square would move slowly over the next few hours. Vicente pulled a small wooden stool, sat beside the front wheel, and dipped the brush into the water. The water in the bucket was cold and clean. Vicente lifted the wet brush and brought it to the bicycle's central frame. He started at the top, where the metal formed a straight line between the handlebars and the seat. The first contact of the damp bristles with the thick dust created a dark paste. He scrubbed with long, steady strokes. The sound of the brush against the metal was rough at first, but it grew smoother as the dirt yielded. The water ran down the frame, carrying away the earth and neglect. Beneath that gray layer, the original color began to emerge. It was a deep green, like the color of old tree leaves in the shade. Vicente dipped the brush into the bucket again. The clean water began to grow cloudy. He continued the motion, descending along the metal tubes that held the front wheel. With each pass, more of the green appeared, returning identity to the bicycle. When the thickest dust was removed, Vicente set the brush aside. He picked up a metal wrench from the workbench. The weight of the tool in his hand was familiar and secure. He approached the center of the front wheel, where two large nuts fastened the axle to the frame. The nut was covered by a hard crust. He fitted the wrench. The fit was perfect. He applied downward pressure. The nut resisted for a second, held by years of immobility, and then yielded with a dry snap. The sound of the metal loosening echoed through the shed. Vicente turned the wrench a few more times, and the movement became light. He finished loosening the nut with his fingers. The metal was cold and rough. He did the same on the other side. With both nuts loose, he lifted the front of the bicycle with one hand and with the other pushed the wheel down. The wheel detached from the frame and rolled a little across the floor, stopping against the bucket. The front of the bicycle now floated, supported by a wooden block Vicente placed underneath. He repeated the process with the rear wheel. The path to the rear nuts was more difficult, blocked by the stiff chain and dirty gears. Vicente worked slowly. He found the right angle for the wrench. Force was applied carefully to avoid hurting his hands on the metal points. The rear wheel also came loose. The bicycle was now just the green frame, suspended in the air, stripped of its moving parts. It seemed lighter, almost vulnerable. With the frame free, Vicente picked up a clean cotton cloth and a bottle of citrus-scented cleaning liquid. He poured a little liquid onto the cloth. The smell of lemon cut through the still air of the shed, bringing a sense of freshness. He began to clean the green metal carefully. Where the brush had removed the earth, the cloth removed old oil stains and fine grime. The movement of his hands was circular and patient. The deep green began to acquire a restrained sheen. It wasn't the shine of something new, but the glow of something well cared for. Vicente found small scratches in the paint, marks from stones and past falls. He didn't try to hide these marks. They were part of the object's story. He ran the cloth over every curve, every welded joint. The metal under his fingers lost its roughness and became smooth. The entire structure seemed to breathe again, clean and ready for the next stage. The two wheels rested on the cement floor away from the green frame. Vicente pulled the front wheel close to him. The rubber tire was completely dried out. Its side was full of deep cracks, like dry earth in the sun. He used two small metal tire levers to force the tire's edge off the rim. The old rubber cracked and released small dark pieces that fell to the floor. With a firm motion, he pulled off the entire tire, revealing the deflated inner tube inside. The inner tube was stuck to the metal in some spots. Vicente pulled it carefully. It came off with a slow unsticking sound. All of that would be discarded. What mattered was the metal rim and the thin steel spokes that connected it to the hub. The rim was dull, covered by a fine haze of oxidation. Vicente picked up a piece of fine steel wool from the shelf. He sat down again on the low stool, placed the wheel on his lap, and began to rub the metal. The friction of the steel wool produced a soft, constant hiss. Vicente didn't apply much force, just the weight of his hand. The continuous movement began to transform the surface. The dull haze disappeared, and the steel once again reflected the window's light. A silvery gleam emerged from beneath the grime. He rotated the wheel on his lap, working on each segment of the metal circle. The smell of metallic dust floated in the air, a dry, clean scent. After cleaning the entire rim, Vicente turned his attention to the thin spokes. There were dozens of them crossing from the hub to the rim. He ran his finger over them, as if touching the strings of an instrument. Some produced a sharp, firm sound. Others made a deep, loose sound. Loose spokes would make the wheel wobble during movement. He picked up a very small tool, a metal square with slots on its sides, made precisely for that job. He fitted the tool onto the base of a loose spoke. He turned it slowly. The small metal piece tightened the spoke against the rim. He touched the spoke again. The sound was now sharp, like the others. He tested them one by one, turning the wheel slowly, stopping whenever he found slack. The process required silence and attention. The shed was filled only by the sound of metal touching metal and the gentle spin of the wheel in Vicente's hands. To ensure alignment, he placed the wheel on a wooden stand that held it upright and allowed it to spin freely. He gave it a slight push. The wheel spun. At first, it wobbled a little from side to side. Vicente observed the movement closely. He stopped the wheel, adjusted two specific spokes, and spun it again. The wobble decreased. He repeated the gesture a few times. Adjust, spin, observe. On the last attempt, the wheel spun perfectly straight. The silver metal circle cut through the air without deviation. The movement was hypnotic and fluid. The sound of air passing through the spokes was almost inaudible, a continuous whisper. Vicente watched the wheel spin until it stopped on its own, gradually losing momentum. Balance had been restored. He left the front wheel on the stand and pulled the rear wheel to begin the same work, knowing that patience would bring the same result. The bicycle's core, the place where leg power transforms into motion, needed deep care. Vicente looked at the hollow space in the lower part of the green frame where the pedals used to connect. He had removed the old parts. Now, resting on a clean white cloth on his workbench were the internal components of this mechanism. They were steel cylinders, threaded caps, and most importantly, small loose metal spheres. The old grease covering these parts had turned into a dark, hardened paste, almost like wet earth that had dried over time. Vicente picked up a small jar of solvent liquid and a short bristled brush. He immersed the parts in the liquid. The strong, penetrating smell of the solvent rose into the air. With the brush, he began to wash each groove of the metal. The dark paste dissolved quickly, staining the transparent liquid black. He removed the parts and dried them with a cotton cloth. The steel was perfect beneath the grime. There was no deep rust there, just the natural wear of use. Vicente paid special attention to the small spheres. He rolled them between his fingers inside the cloth, cleaning them one by one. When he finished, they gleamed like tiny silver pearls on the white fabric. The contrast between the previous dirt and the current purity was clear. The next step was to restore smoothness to the mechanism. Vicente opened a new jar of grease. The fresh grease had a golden, translucent color, and its texture was thick and sticky. The smell was subtle, reminding of oil and wax. He took some grease with his fingertip and spread it inside the cavity of the green frame.
He covered the metal surface with a generous, uniform layer. The golden grease shone in the shadow of the hole.
With the help of small tweezers, Vicente began to put the silver spheres back into place. One by one, he sunk them into the bed of golden grease. The grease held them firmly. He formed a perfect circle of spheres within the metal. The work required steady hands and keen eyes. Vicente's breathing became slow and measured, so his fingers wouldn't tremble. When the circle closed, he felt the satisfaction of order re-established. He inserted the central axle, a thick steel rod, through the circle of spheres. He applied more grease on the other side, arranged the second circle of spheres, and closed the mechanism with the threaded cap. He used a wrench to tighten the cap, feeling the resistance increase to the exact point of firmness. It couldn't be too tight, or it wouldn't spin. It couldn't be loose, or it would wobble. The right point was a delicate balance. Vicente fitted one of the pedal arms onto the newly assembled axle. He held the metal tip and gave it a push downward. The arms spun in a complete circle, silent and perfect. There was no friction, no sound of scratching grit, no resistance. The new grease and clean spheres made the metal glide over metal as if floating. The movement was so free that the arm continued to swing gently back and forth a few times before stopping. The bicycle's heart was beating again. The bicycle chain lay stretched across the workbench like a hardened iron snake. The links were locked, stuck together by a mixture of light rust and dried oil. Vicente tried to bend the chain, but it resisted, stiff as a dry branch. This piece was the bridge between the force of movement and the wheel that would propel the bicycle forward. It needed to be flexible as water. He filled a shallow metal basin with the solvent liquid and immersed the entire chain. The liquid covered the dark metal. Vicente let the part rest there for a few minutes. The air in the shed became saturated with the rustic scent of heavy cleaning. He looked out the window. The sun had descended a little further, and the light entering now was more orange, lengthening the shadows on the cement floor. The silence outside was profound, punctuated only by the rustling of leaves from a nearby tree. Vicente pulled the chain from the liquid. He picked up a small steel brush and began to scrub each link. The quick movement of the brush raised little dark droplets. He held a piece of the chain with one hand and brushed with the other. Gradually, the stiffness yielded. The links began to move. He bent the chain to one side, then the other, forcing the dirt out of the joints. The sound of articulating metal returned, a soft, repetitive click. After being cleaned and dried, the chain lost its dark color and revealed the gray tone of matte steel. It now bent easily, flowing through Vicente's hands like a heavy ribbon. He carried the chain to the bicycle. The wheels with new black tires were already mounted on the green frame. He threaded the chain through the rear wheel's gears and pulled it to the front sprocket. He joined the two loose ends with a small metal pin, using a pressing tool to lock it in place. With the chain in place, lubrication was next. Vicente picked up a small bottle of thin oil. The bottle's nozzle was long and precise. He touched the nozzle to the chain and began to slowly turn the pedal with his left hand. With his right hand, he let a drop of oil fall on each passing link. The transparent oil immediately entered the metal crevices. The sound of the chain turning changed. The dry metallic clatter transformed into a fluid, soft murmur.
Vicente's attention shifted to the brakes. The ability to stop was as important as the ability to move forward. He threaded new steel cables through the black conduits that ran from the handlebars to the wheels. The new steel gleamed. He attached the cable ends to the metal brake arms and installed small blocks of new rubber. The rubber smelled of the factory, a strong, clean scent. He adjusted the position of the blocks so they touched the metal rim perfectly aligned. He squeezed the brake lever on the handlebars. The lever pulled the cable pulled the metal arms, and the rubber pressed the rim. The movement was firm and immediate. He released the lever, and the parts returned to their initial position with a quick snap. He repeated the gesture a few times, feeling the tension of the steel cable through his fingers. There was security in that mechanical response. The bicycle now knew how to run freely and knew how to stop when needed. The bicycle seat rested on the workbench. It was made of thick leather, attached to a base of steel springs. Time and disuse had sucked all the moisture from the material. The leather was light brown, hard like a piece of wood, and its surface was filled with small, dry cracks. Sitting there would be uncomfortable and likely tear the weakened material. Vicente needed to bring life back to that surface. He picked up a small round tin. Inside it was a paste made of beeswax and natural oils. He opened the lid. The sweet smell of wax mixed with a faint pine aroma filled the space around the workbench. Vicente took a piece of cotton, dipped it into the yellowish paste, and brought it to the dry leather of the seat. He began to rub in circular, slow, repetitive motions. The moment the paste touched the leather, the color changed. The light, dull brown transformed into a rich, deep, dark brown. The thirsty leather absorbed the wax almost instantly. Vicente felt the rough texture under his fingers become smoother and smoother as he spread the paste. He covered the entire surface, paying special attention to the edges and larger cracks. The movement of his hands generated a slight warmth, helping the wax penetrate deeper. He left the seat to rest and absorb the treatment, and turned his attention to the handlebars. The curved metal was clean, but the ends where hands should rest were bare. Vicente had bought a pair of new rubber grips, a dark shade that matched the green of the frame. The rubber was firm, but yielded slightly to finger pressure, promising comfort. To fit the grips onto the metal, he moistened the inside of the rubber with a little soapy water. He positioned the first grip on the end of the handlebar and pushed with the palm of his hand. The rubber slid over the metal with a muffled suction sound, stopping firmly. He did the same on the other side. The water would dry soon, and the rubber would be fixed, immobile. The handlebars now seemed complete, inviting to the touch. Vicente returned to the workbench. He picked up a clean, dry cloth and wiped it over the leather seat, removing any excess wax that hadn't been absorbed. The leather now had a soft, satiny sheen. He pressed his thumb into the center of the seat. The surface yielded slightly. The hardness of wood had disappeared, replaced by a flexible firmness. The smell of beeswax and renewed leather was pleasant and inviting. He carried the seat to the bicycle and fitted the metal post into the frame's tube. He adjusted the height, estimating the measure by the custom of his eyes, and tightened the side nut to secure it. Vicente took 2 steps back. He looked at the entire bicycle. The clean green frame, the aligned wheels with new tires, the lubricated chain, the dark leather seat, and the handlebars ready to be gripped. What was once a forgotten, broken object in the back of the shed was now a complete machine, silent, waiting for movement. The restoration work was finished.
The sun was low in the sky, painting the clouds with shades of orange and purple. The late afternoon light streamed through the double doors of the shed, which Vicente had thrown wide open. The air was cooler now, carrying the damp scent of garden earth and nearby tree leaves. It was the perfect moment. Vicente walked to the green bicycle. He gripped the new rubber handlebars. The touch was firm and comfortable. He disengaged the kickstand with the tip of his foot. The metal rose with a quick snap. He began to push the bicycle towards the door. The new tires touched the cement floor and rolled smoothly. There was no sound of dragging rubber, no creaking of dry parts. The only sound was the light, rhythmic click of the freewheel at the back. As it crossed the threshold of the door, the tires met the packed earth and gravel of the path leading to the road. The sound changed to a soft crunch of pebbles, a sonic texture that spoke of open space. Vicente stopped at the edge of the path. He swung his leg over the green frame and sat on the leather seat. The leather yielded slightly under his weight, settling in. The steel springs beneath the seat creaked very softly, absorbing the pressure. He placed his right foot on the pedal. The position felt natural, as if the bicycle had been adjusted for him from the start. He looked at the dirt road ahead, flanked by tall trees whose shadows already stretched across the ground. He pressed the pedal down. The force of his leg traveled through the metal arm, turned the central axle, pulled the lubricated chain, and made the rear wheel spin. The bicycle moved forward. Balance, absent for so long in that metal structure, returned the instant the wheels gained speed. Vicente lifted his other foot and found the second pedal. He began to pedal with a calm, steady rhythm. The sensation was of pure fluidity. The small steel spheres, now bathed in new grease, allowed the pedals to turn without any effort. The chain slid through the gears like water over smooth stones. Friction had disappeared. The fresh, late afternoon air brushed Vicente's face, gently moving his hair. The world around him seemed to pass at a perfect pace, not too fast to lose details, nor too slow to demand effort. He lightly squeezed the brake levers. The rubber touched the metal rims, and the bicycle instantly slowed, safely and precisely. He released the brakes and began to pedal again. The sound of the tires cutting through the packed earth was hypnotic, a continuous hiss that mingled with the song of the first crickets of the night. The bicycle responded to every small movement of the handlebars, deftly avoiding potholes. The green frame felt alive beneath him, an extension of his own body. Vicente rode along the road, moving away from the shed. He had no destination. The goal was simply movement, the confirmation that the cycle had closed. He watched the landscape slowly changing, the trees passing, the sky gradually darkening. The machine that was once an inert weight in the corner of a dark room now carried a man through the world, cutting through the wind in silence. The silent promise made earlier that afternoon had been fulfilled. The journey back was made at an even slower pace. The sky was now a deep, almost nocturnal blue, and the first faint star already twinkled on the horizon. The air had cooled, bringing a pleasant freshness that contrasted with the slight warmth of Vicente Audi after the exercise. He stopped pedaling in the last few meters, allowing the bicycle to glide solely on the momentum it had accumulated. The sound of the freewheel sang its quick, metallic click, decreasing in frequency as the speed dropped.
The tires touched the gravel in front of the shed again. Vicente gently applied the brakes. The bicycle stopped completely. The movement ceased, and the body's balance gave way to the firmness of the earth. He dismounted from the leather seat, feeling his feet touch the ground firmly. With his hand on the handlebars, he walked, pushing the bicycle to the side of the shed, where a small wooden porch covered by a simple roof offered shelter. He leaned the bicycle against the wooden wall. With the tip of his foot, he pushed the kickstand down. The metal piece touched the ground. Vicente released the weight of the machine. The bicycle tilted slightly and stopped, stable and secure. The green of the frame seemed darker in the dim light,
but the gleam of the polished metal still reflected the distant clarity of the sky. It no longer looked abandoned. It simply seemed to be resting after a journey. Vicente walked to the stone sink outside the shed. He turned on the faucet. Cold water gushed out forcefully. He picked up a piece of rough soap and began to wash his hands. The lather carried away the last traces of oil, grease, and dust that still marked his skin. The cold water was a relief on his tired hands. He rinsed his fingers calmly, feeling the texture of the stone under the water, and then dried his hands on a cloth towel that hung from a nail on the wall. With clean hands, he paused on the porch. The dark shed behind him exhaled the scent of sawdust and resting tools. In front of him, the garden began to disappear into the shadow of the night. The sound of crickets was now a continuous, soothing curtain of sound. Vicente looked at the green bicycle leaning against the wood. The day's work was done. The parts had been understood, cleaned, and reunited. Order had been restored to the metal and the space. He took a deep breath, feeling the cold night air fill his lungs, and let the silence take over the place.